special meeting this evening because Mr. Myatt was going to attend the meeting remotely, but his travel plans changed, so we're glad he's able to join us.
So you're all very disappointed.
With that being said, we have quite a few presentations this evening, so we'll get started with our first one. Dr. Shandor, we have an operations update. Would you like to share some information about this topic?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Geralds. Good evening, board members. We have 7 presentations this evening. Our first one is going to be an operations update from Dr. Carroll, Chief Operations Officer. He's going to share information related to operations. Dr. Carroll.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. And Madam Chair, members of the board, here is your COVID-19 environment and related actions update. So first of all, we will start with, these are snapshots from the CDC map and designation. You'll remember that 2 weeks ago was the first time that we saw this, and that green equals low community designation, not even transmission, but that's the designation. And on the left is where we were at 2 weeks ago, with about half of the counties in our area being in low. And then on the right, you see the current map from today, where you can see that most everybody is in low and one county in high near us. And of course, VDH decided to change their Locality Metrics website again. They have replaced their old graph with a weekly bar graph. And so instead of showing you that, I went with where you have the actual numbers. And so here is our map and with the locality numbers. And the last time I reported to you, we were at 77.7 per 100,000. Today we stand at 35.7. So they have been cut in more than half. And so things continue to get better, and that's good. And our dashboard is looking even better. In my last report, we had 3 active positive cases. Today, I'm happy to report that we started the day with 0 positive cases. Likewise, our quarantines were down from 2 to 0. Excuse me. Now, I'll remind you that we are not actively conducting contact tracing, and therefore, any students that were or staff that were on quarantine were self-reported, and so that number had already fallen significantly, but we were still at 2 weeks ago. As I shared in my last report, under the designation of low, the CDC recommends only a few very certain community actions. Schools can provide or assist in only 2 of those listed here. Now, of course, the maintenance of our ventilation systems will be ongoing, and I reported last time that it was our intention to expand our EMED program, and we have indeed done that. As I also stated at the last meeting, we expected our 3 remaining mitigation layers to be removed in short order given the trajectory of community transmission. And as I stated earlier, the transmission is lower by more than half of where it was at the last meeting 2 weeks ago. Therefore, we will be revising our school-based guidance to eliminate the last 3 layers of individual distancing and the 2 types of indoor assemblies. In addition, that 4th bullet point, we intend to suspend the COVID-19 dashboard at spring break. Now, I'd like to give one caveat. With all the layers removed from the last meeting and from this one that we've informed you of, other than student masks, final decisions for change at the school site are put at the discretion of the principal. There may be some practices or layers that principals don't change immediately, as our students have gone through a lot of change this year, and there may be some academic or supervisory reason that they want to ease back into some things. Therefore, we've given them that discretion to make site-based decisions that work best for their schools. And that concludes my COVID report. Mr. Shearhart was unable to be with us tonight to give you a full capital projects report, but I did want to share just a little bit about the Seaford renovation.
Do you want to pause for any questions related to the COVID update from any board members?
Have we seen people reaching out, families reaching out to receive tests?
Very little.
Okay.
Giving out like 5 or 6 a week.
Oh, okay. I'm grateful for the principal discretion on that.
Yeah, I
kind of get that read on their buildings and all that.
I'm appreciative of the good news.
So that's good. I think we all are. Okay, so then we'll move on to the Seaford renovation and addition. Just two things here. So if you've driven by, you're starting to see some prep work beginning, some staging of construction materials and placement of security fences and erosion control fencing. During spring break, you're going to see a lot of activity in the front area and some at the rear border boundary lines of the property. We're going to be removing all those trees in the front, right in front of the the driveway for the school. And that's so that we can put some more construction equipment there. And eventually that's going to be where the expanded parking lot and car rider driveway are going to be. So now it's going to be 2 years away when we have a finished product, but we wanted to get those trees out of the way when we didn't have students at the school, and also so that we don't run into any unforeseen issues down the road and delay our construction in some form or fashion. So we feel good about that. And so that concludes my report, and I welcome any other questions you may have.
So when you're looking at Seaford Elementary, over on the left, where the bus area is that fencing there, did that take away any parking?
No, it's not hurting parking. It's really tightened our area for buses, but we only have a few buses that roll into there, and so they're able to maneuver and get through there. The biggest probably problem that we're having logistically is what are we going to do with recess when it's wet outside, when it rains, and we're working on getting them some more equipment so that they can have a productive recess when they are out there, more purpose-driven. And but there are going to be some times they're just kind of limited when we have bad weather, especially between now and the end of the year.
So they won't be limited for parking when they're having their parent conferences or anything later in the year, is
well, if they've used that for parent conferences, yes. And so we'll have to see what we can do to assist in that.
I know that the church right next door has been very gracious with
They've
their space.
been fantastic this year, and they help us with arrival and dismissal, and we may reach out to them for some help there.
Okay, great.
If necessary.
Anything else?
Thank you, Dr. Carroll. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, our next topic this evening relates to our 2022-23 school calendar. Dr. Shandor.
Thank you, Ms. Geraltz. So during this presentation, Dr. Aaron Butler, our Director of School Administration, is going to provide the school board with the 2022-2023 division calendar proposal. Dr. Butler.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Shandor, thank you for this opportunity to present the 2022-2023 school division calendar proposal. Per the Code of Virginia, school divisions are required to develop school calendars with a minimum of 180 instructional days or 990 instructional hours. In addition, school divisions are also required to ensure that there are 140 instructional hours per course for high school credit-bearing classes, 560 instructional hours in the 4 core classes at the middle school level, and 680 instructional hours in the 4 academic disciplines at the elementary school level. Beginning this school year, the General Assembly required all preschool programs funded through the Virginia Preschool Initiative, the VPI program, to maintain a minimum of 495 instructional hours. The calendar proposal this evening meets all requirements stipulated by the Code of Virginia. Following best practices, the Division Calendar Committee was comprised of various stakeholders which met several times during the course of the year to review considerations and options for the development of the calendar. To minimize instructional disruption for students participating in programs offered through New Horizons, the Regional Calendar Committee, composed of representatives from neighboring school divisions, met several times to discuss common school closures and start times. There was a split in the region with Gloucester, Newport News, Waynesburg, James City County, and York County all developing a pre-Labor Day calendar, while Hampton City and Poquoson City schools developed post-Labor Day calendars. The calendar proposal tonight represents an attempt to maximize the alignment with the majority of neighboring school division calendars with a pre-Labor Day start. The Calendar Committee received several recommendations from stakeholders regarding priorities and factors to consider in the development of the calendar. Using Trigo Ed processes, the committee was able to establish several criteria. One was to maintain a 2-week winter break for students, staff, and families. Build in a teacher workday within each 9-week grading period. Align division calendar with neighboring divisions, specifically those participating in regional programs. Maintain a 3-day Thanksgiving holiday for staff and students, and balance professional development opportunities for staff with an even distribution throughout the course of the year. The 2022-2023 calendar proposal contains 180 instructional days for students. While teaching staff are contracted to work 200 days per year, the current calendar proposal was built to include 194 work days for returning teachers and 197 work days for new teachers. Last year, the calendar proposal contained 192 work days for returning teachers and 195 work days for new teachers. The proposal this year did not change the number of contract work days for teachers, but clarifies the days set aside for unencumbered work days for staff. In the past, many teachers would come in the summertime to work in their classrooms or prepare or stay later, and so we just accounted for those days in the new calendar. In the calendar presentation, you will see either unencumbered teacher work days or teacher work day TBD. We have a stakeholder committee which will include teachers who will work to clearly define how teacher work days will be structured in the new calendar. With the calendar proposal, new teachers will return on Monday, August the 15th, and then all staff will return on Thursday, August the 18th, and that has been designated as an unencumbered teacher work day. On Monday, August the 29th, that will be the first day of school for students. Per the Code of Virginia, any school division that starts pre-Labor Day has to build in a student holiday, the Friday that precedes the Labor Day holiday. So September the 2nd is a student holiday. It is a teacher work day, and it's been identified as TBD. And then, of course, September the 5th, which is Labor Day holiday, schools and offices will be closed. And then we have an early dismissal day on September 30th, 2022. Per the calendar committee recommendation to build in teacher work days, we do have a work day built in for Wednesday, October the 19th. That also corresponds with Yorktown Day holiday, and so that was a tradition in York County where we traditionally had used that day as a holiday for students so they could participate in activities. This is the first time in many years we've been able to propose this as part of the calendar. November the 8th, which is Election Day, is a student holiday, and it's a teacher work day, which is TBD. And then Thanksgiving will be from November the 23rd through the 25th, and that is closed for both schools and offices. In December, there's an early dismissal day on December the 9th, which is also a teacher work day in that afternoon. And then winter break will begin on December the 21st, which is a Wednesday, and it will run through the rest of the month of December. You also see that there's two 12-month employee work days. They have not been identified yet, but they usually 12-month employees do work 2 days during the winter break period. In January, schools and offices will be closed on Monday, January the 2nd. That is the official observance of the New Year's Day legal holiday, since it falls on a Sunday this year. And then on January the 3rd is a student holiday teacher work day. On January the 16th, which is the King holiday, schools and offices will be closed. There's an early dismissal date set for Thursday, January 26th, and then on January 27th, at the end of the second quarter, there is a student holiday teacher work day. And the third grading period will begin on Monday, January the 30th. In the month of February, there's one day, President's Day, which is observed on Monday, February the 20th, and schools and offices will be closed. In March, there's a student holiday teacher work day built in for March the 6th, which is on a Monday. And then there's an early dismissal day on March the 31st, and it's designated also as a teacher work day in the afternoon as TBD. Spring break is consistent with all the other schools in our region. It's the first full week in April, and so that is April the 3rd through the 7th. We've also indicated on the calendar that traditionally 12-month employees do work 2 days during that time period, and that will be determined by our finance and human resource departments. May the 12th is an early dismissal day, teacher work day, and then May the 29th for Memorial Day, schools and offices will be closed. Similar to the approach we took this year, graduation day is going to end before the end of the school year. So you can see that Friday, June the 9th has been designated as graduation day. And then we have 2 early dismissal days on Monday, June the 12th, and Tuesday, June the 13th. June the 13th being the last day of school. And then June the 14th is an unencumbered teacher workday. As far as our next steps, the stakeholder committee will clarify and define those expectations for the teacher workdays, which are designated on the calendar as TBD. And as I shared previously, the Human Resource and Finance departments will determine what workdays 12-month employees will work during winter and spring break. So thank you for this opportunity to present the 2022-2023 school division calendar proposal. I am available for questions at this time.
So, one of the reasons we're starting school a week earlier was there was really a push, but there was a thought that eventually schools would start maybe 2 weeks earlier so we could finish the semester at a break during Christmas. So the kids in school didn't have to have a long break and then come back and finish like a week worth of assignments to finish that course. So is there still, the calendar committee still looking at a push to move this to a 2 week earlier start time, do you think? Or do you even know, has there been discussion with that, or is that still up in the air?
So the calendar committee, we did discuss that. One of the complications is the law, when it was passed, allows us to go 14 calendar days. And so when we were looking at the number of days, it doesn't always align to allow us to end the first semester at winter break because you're still short some days. So we are looking at the possibility. I'm not sure if the General Assembly is considering maybe modifying that law to allow us to extend a little further. I know that there are certain divisions in the state which had the waiver prior to the law being changed, and so they do start more than 14 days before Labor Day. But we were still under the old system because we were not allowed prior to the law changing in the future.
Said 14 school days, we would be in much better position.
Okay, I just know a lot of parents.
Versus
become,
count. Yeah.
A lot of parents become anxious because, you know, they're trying to schedule vacations and that sort of thing. We certainly understand that. So it would be nice to get some direction so we know where we're heading, to let parents know that.
I think we're going to stay exactly where we are until that changes, if it changes.
Which makes sense, Okay, thank you.
Is there a way to change the timeline of how we do our calendar? Because I know there is kind of some chatter in the community not knowing, because there was talk that we were moving it earlier and people weren't sure. And this is usually the month that it's reported and all that. Is there a chance that we could move it up a month and approve these things in February instead of March? That would give parents more time to plan.
Well, part of that is determined by the regional group that meets. So, I mean, we're not in this by ourselves when we come up with this, so that's something that Dr. Butler could take back to that group.
I'm just asking, can we bring that up to the calendar committee, just because I think it would give parents a little bit more leeway when they're planning vacations and just trips in the summer, camps in the summer and everything else.
Yeah, because traditionally we've always met starting in the fall so that we can have everything ready for March, but we can look at the calendar. And then, like as Dr. Shandor said, I know that our neighboring divisions, they also, they've pushed up their timeline a little bit for their committees. So as long as they're still going to follow that same procedure next year, we probably can look at that as well.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Questions, anybody else?
No, I'm good.
I mean, I like the idea that January 2nd and 3rd are still, you know, holidays or the teacher workday, the unencumbered day, I think it was, or no, TBD, the teacher workday TBD on that. So I mean, I like the idea of staggering the start of winter break on a Wednesday so that can be reached to get that day. I think that helps coming back, especially with the first being on a Sunday, not having to necessarily start. So with the first being Sunday and the second being the observation day of it, is that a requirement for all school divisions to follow that second being a holiday?
So the way the Code of Virginia is worded, when if you're observing the legal holiday, then yes, then usually if it falls on a Saturday, the legal holiday is that Friday. If it falls on a Sunday, it's that Monday. So since we honored the legal holiday, that's the reason why we did it. Now, you're not obligated. So if the school division decides that they didn't want to follow that course, but the majority of our school divisions in our region look at the calendar and are observing the legal holiday. Okay. There's a few that are not.
And do we have any inclement weather days worked into this schedule?
So typically what we do, if there is an inclement weather day, the executive committee for the school division's executive leadership team, they'll meet and look at the calendar, and we look at several factors. We'll look at how many hours, because if for some reason inclement weather causes us to lose days, we can always revert back to the 990 hours and we can look at that to see. Or if we need to make some of our early dismissal days full days, or if we need to look at some of the holidays we had designated, we can go back and we can change
Depends on the
those.
timing of the storm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Anybody else?
All right. Thank you, Dr. Butler.
Thank you.
All right, our next topic this evening is an operating budget update. Dr. Shandor?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Geralds. Mr. Bowen, our Chief Financial Officer, is going to provide some information related to state funding. Mr. Bowen.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Shandor, I'd hoped for this evening's presentation I would be able to share some information on the final state budget. Unfortunately, the General Assembly adjourned without passing a budget. It's our understanding that it will be called back into session in the next couple of weeks and to continue those negotiations. So we're probably looking at first week of April or second week of April before we see a final budget. So for this evening's presentation, what I'm going to share is I'm going to share two budgets. One update for FY22, which is going to be a comparison of the governor's proposed, and then compare that to the Senate and House version, and also do the same for FY23. So let me begin with FY22. So if you recall, last year, almost a year ago, the General Assembly completed its work, and they adopted an FY22 budget. This provided about $80.9 million for the school division. Then in December of 2021, the governor proposed changes to the FY22 budget. Now, these changes are common. If you can imagine, when they adopted the budget, they did it with certain assumptions. State revenue at a certain level, and then also enrollment at a certain level. So through the start of school, we're constantly reporting numbers, enrollment numbers in particular, to the VDOE. So these numbers are incorporated in the governor's changes here. These would be total enrollment, but also we have specific programs that are changed, special education programs, and then also preschool programs. And so if you look at the governor's proposed budget on December 16th, we're about $277,000 short of the original adopted last year. So the good news here is that we did incorporate this change in the superintendent's proposed budget that he presented in February. So we were able to incorporate those changes. They were modest. We look at the House proposed budget on March 1st. They adopted the governor's proposed budget, so there were no changes. With the Senate proposed budget, however, there is a change. And if we compare this to the governor's proposed budget of December 16th, we're looking at about $1.3 million more. And this is because the Senate has proposed a one-time bonus by June of 2022. There's a lot of information we still don't know about the bonus, but what we do know is it doesn't require a local match, which is good. In the language, it does state that the funding was based on a 1.9% bonus for SOQ funded positions. And the language encourages school divisions to add to that so that everybody gets a 1.9% bonus. However, if we were to add funds to give everybody a 1.9% bonus, which on average they've calculated it as $1,000, it would cost us another $450,000 to $500,000. And so we'll need to see what the final language reads as far as that bonus. But I will just say this. The Senate and the House are still very far apart in their final negotiations. The total price tag for the statewide is $137.5 million. Certainly, it's reasonable to expect, because of the high price tag here, and it's only included in the Senate version, that this might get eliminated in the final budget. Any questions? This concludes the FY22 update. I'd be happy to answer any questions here. Okay, so we'll move on. We'll move on to FY23. And so with the governor's proposed budget in December, total state funding for YCSD was $91.8 million. And then the House released its version of the budget. That total was $87.7 million, about $4.16 million less than the governor's proposed. And then the Senate's proposed budget was $93.8 million, about $2 million more than the governor's proposed. So really, to understand the differences here, we need to look at the details. And so you recall in January when I presented a budget update, I presented it in this format in the four major categories of SOQ accounts, lottery accounts, incentive accounts, and categorical accounts. So under the SOQ accounts, I'm just going to hit the highlights here. So the governor's proposed budget included $43.1 million for basic aid. What we see on the Senate side is just a change to the governor's budget. He's adding $1.3 million in basic aid. And they're doing a couple of things in this process. The Senate's adding back funding for support positions that were eliminated during the Great Recession of 2010. They're also adding funding for reading specialists. They're setting a new standard of one position per 550 students at the K-3 level. And we currently do exceed that level. So this would be just new funding for us, reimbursing us for local funds that we're already paying for the programs. And if you look at the House budget, the House provides one assistant principal per 500 students per school, and also adds reading funding for reading specialists. However, if you look at the sales tax number, we have a significant reduction there in sales tax. The sales tax and basic aid are connected. And why we're seeing this significant reduction is because the House is using a more conservative forecast for sales tax next year. So as sales tax goes down, basic aid goes up. And we're seeing the big increase in basic aid under the House side is really related to that change in sales tax. And then look to the incentive accounts. And a couple of things to note here. First of all, the compensation supplement. You'll notice that on the Senate, there was just a minor adjustment of $69,000. However, on the House side, the House is proposing eliminating 1% of the 5% compensation increase that the governor proposed. And they're proposing that 1% be provided in a bonus. So if you look at the second to the last line, just above the subtotal account, you'll see under the House side $473,000, and that's the bonus payment. If you look at risk, the governor proposed adding K-3 programs to at-risk. The Senate adopted the governor's proposal with a minor change. However, the House is eliminating the three-year-old programs for at-risk. And then under school construction, this is a big change. So the governor had proposed $5.2 million in school construction funds. The Senate agreed with that. However, the House is eliminating the school construction funds. They want to have a competitive application process for the school construction fund. So we don't know what that's going to look like. Certainly, we like what we saw. It seemed like how they were funding it was fair across the board. It was based on every school division getting $1 million, and then the remaining funds based on average daily membership in your local composite index. And so that was certainly a fair way to do it, but we don't know what the competitive application process is going to hold for us. Certainly increases the administrative work associated with the CIP. And then we looked at lottery funds, not a lot of changes to the lottery. There was early reading intervention program. The governor had proposed expanding that to 4th and 5th graders, and the Senate and the House both eliminated that. And then at the very bottom, supplemental lottery allocation, the House is proposing to add almost $350,000 in supplemental lottery. These funds are specific to operations, and they can't be used for reoccurring costs. So not something favorable to us, because we would like to have the flexibility to use those funds as we see fit. And then finally, the categorical programs. There are no changes to the categorical programs. However, if you look at the bottom, the last line highlighted there, total funding $91.8 million with the governor, $2 million with the Senate increase, and then 4.16 loss with the House budget. And this concludes my presentation on FY23, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
The change in the school construction in the incentive accounts one from the House, with having to do an application process, is that going to change how we have to go about the capital improvement plan, that 6-year plan, with not knowing the state aid we would get towards that?
We will have to come back and we will have to address the CIP, because we had a couple of options. We could have incorporated the funds, the school construction funds, which we did. However, the other option was to just realign the whole CIP. We would need to push some projects out so that we couldn't exceed the debt capacity of the county.
Because Because we could apply for something and then not get it now.
Correct, and the problem with the application process, they probably won't have the application available until July.
Yeah.
Which means we've got to familiarize ourselves with the application, submit it, then it's going to go through a comprehensive review. So it might be 4 or 6 months before we ever know that we've been awarded funds. And as you know, the CFIT project has started, and we're moving forward on that.
Just even keeping track of what's happening at the state level right now, it's like ping pong, you just can't even. So we're grateful that you're doing it on our behalf. Any other
Yeah,
questions?
having that comparison was very helpful, thank you.
Do you see the two sides, the House and the Senate, meeting towards the middle with it? I mean, with a $4 million difference, or?
Really, just
Or
stay
is
with
it-
the
Well,
governor.
there's
It's right in the
a couple-
middle.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other big differences. Right now, the House has $150 million set aside for tax relief, where the Senate does not. And also, the House has $150 million set aside for the
Lab
college
schools.
labs. So there's some big dollars and differences there. It's possible that it can go beyond April. Just depends on where the pressure is being placed.
So Bill, if I'm looking at this right, as far as the raise versus the bonus, it would be better for us if we didn't do a bonus and had the full 6%, right?
That's correct. The bonus, well, the bonus is great, and we will never turn away money.
Right.
In any form of compensation. If we had a choice, we would say, give us the raise, because that, the raise applies to VRS and your final,
Right.
average final compensation. So we're always pushing for a permanent raise and not a bonus. Flexibility.
So in one of the slides, it was talking about the VRS, and I think it was the House that was trying to cut that portion significantly. What is the rationale behind that? Just talking about their portion of contribution?
Yeah, so the House has a $500 million payment to the VRS, where the Senate does not have that payment. And this all dates back to the Great Recession, when rates were made significantly lower than what the VRS Board of Trustees had determined that the rate should be. And this was really to balance the budget through that economic crisis. So we're still making up for those decisions that were made back in 2010, 11, 12. And so the answer from the House is to invest $500 million, because they have a lot of money up in Richmond, but the Senate does not see that as a priority. The returns for VRS last year were about 3 to 4 times higher than expected. So the fund balance right now is very strong. The highest it's been in many, many years.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Bond.
Bowen.
All right. Our next agenda item is a strategic plan update. Dr. Shandor?
Thank you, Ms. Geralds. Next, we have Ms. Candy Skinner, our Chief Academic Officer. She's going to share an update on Goal 1 relating to college and career readiness. Ms. Skinner.
Thank you. Okay. And if I can just grab this. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Shandor. This evening, I'm going to provide you with an update on Goal 1 of the strategic plan, which states that the percentage of 10th grade students achieving the college and career ready benchmark of 910 on the PSAT will increase by 6 percentage points. Before going into the data, I'd like to just give a little bit of background information in regards to the PSAT. We currently give and pay for all 10th grade students to take the PSAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test. And any student who is in 9th or 11th grade can take that test if the parent chooses and wants to pay for their students to take it when our 10th graders take the test. We give the PSAT for a number of reasons. The first one is it allows our students to connect with online programs that can assist them with career exploration. They can connect their College Board account to things like Big Future and Career Finder, which are part of the College Board computer programming. And in those programs, they can look at computer interests, they can engage in looking at different colleges and career planning processes. It even helps them kind of decide which high school courses they'd like to take. So it's a great tool for them as they're launching into their 11th and 12th grade year. The PSAT is a diagnostic test, and because of that, it does provide students with an understanding of where their strengths and their areas for growth fall. We help every student who takes the PSAT to connect to Khan Academy. And so when they connect to Khan Academy, they can use that process to help them prepare for the SAT. They use that PSAT data to do so. Our students also use the PSAT information to help them decide which courses in our program of studies would be a good fit for them, and actually recommends AP potential courses and things like that. And then last but not least, we do use the information from the PSAT to help us make decisions about our curriculum guides and pacing. The College and Career Readiness Benchmark score represents a 75% likelihood of a student achieving at least a C in first semester credit-bearing college courses. The grade 10 PSAT College and Career Ready benchmark for English is 430, as you can see there. For math, it is 480, and then the combined total benchmark is 910. When a student scores at least a 910 on the PSAT, it is predicted that they will be on track for receiving at least a 1010 on the SAT. It is important to know that this is a continuum, so if a student does not reach that SAT benchmark, it doesn't mean that they can't do well in college with extra help and with perseverance. Again, it's just a continuum. All right, so this chart shows the annual targets and percentage of grade 10 students who met the PSAT College and Career Ready benchmark of 910 since starting the strategic plan in FY18. As you can see in FY18, 61% of our test takers met the benchmark of 910, and that established our baseline that year. Since then, in order to meet that 6 percentage point increase that we stated in our strategic plan, there's been incremental targets established for each year, with FY22 target being 67%. As you can see, we did not meet that 67% target during the FY22 school year. And you may have noticed that in FY21 there's an asterisk there, and that is there because the number of test takers was significantly smaller, so we have to proceed with a little bit of caution when we are looking at those results and comparing them to other school years. And then on the next two slides, I'm going to share with you a little bit about how our students did on the math and English subtests. So we'll start with math. This chart does show or illustrate our PSAT trend data for math. Our school division continues to exceed national and state averages. The division, however, has seen a decline of 18 percentage points over the past 5 years, and the nation and state have also experienced declines of 8 and 11 points, respectively. Looking at English, we see similar trends. Just like math, our division continues to exceed national and state averages. Over the last 5 years, we have seen a 17-point decline, with the nation and the state averages also declining of 6 and 10 points, respectively. So I'm going to propose now a couple changes that we're going to be making starting next school year. So the first change that I'm recommending that we make is that we provide all of our students with the opportunity to take the PSAT 8-9 in grade 9. Other school divisions do this. And one of the reasons for this is our current PSAT, which is traditionally given in the fall, covers content from Algebra 2. So when our students take the test, they have not had full access to that math course. The PSAT 8-9 is focused on algebra, so the majority of our students, when they take this test, will have had access to that curriculum at that time. Another reason that I'm proposing this change is that PSAT will continue to provide that individual information on what courses students should consider taking over their next 3 years while in high school. They can use the Career Finder and Big Future programs just like they did with the other one. along with their PSAT information to select courses that may be of interest to them or meet their academic goals, as well as look for AP potential. And then because our students take the PSAT in grade 9, it will provide them with an earlier baseline measure, which is really important for college and career readiness. This allows for earlier preparation for the SAT. Those students will also connect their results to the Khan Academy, so we'll be able to help our students utilize that Khan Academy over the coming years to prepare for the SAT. And then finally, this PSAT will give us important information about our division middle school curriculum and if any adjustments need to be made. I'm proposing a second change that we're planning to make, and that is to move our current PSAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test to grade 11. So all of our students would have the opportunity to take that in grade 11 rather than grade 10. So our students would take the PSAT 8-9 in grade 9 and then this test in grade 11. There are several reasons for this. The first one is it does allow all of our students the opportunity to enter into the National Merit Scholarship Program, which they can only do as 11th graders. And then there's a second opportunity for our students. It would allow them to participate in the College Board Student Search Program. And when students take this test, they can actually opt in for this. And what it does is it connects them to educational and financial opportunities from over 2,000 colleges and scholarship programs. So that's a great benefit for our students. And then since our students will take the PSAT in grade 11, it will closely align to their math coursework in 11th grade, which I had mentioned earlier. Just like our PSAT 8-9, our students will be able to use that information for individual planning for college and career. It'll also help them decide which courses would be best for them as they think about their program of studies. And they'll use that information to continue to align to the Khan Academy and prepare for the SAT. And lastly, it will also show our students how they're progressing along that continuum from 9th to 11th grade. So those are the two major changes that I'm proposing. So this is what it will look like for our students. 9th graders next year, the division will pay for all students to take the PSAT next year and then every year following. For those students going into 10th grade, that they will be kind of a skipped group. So they will have the option to opt in, and the division would pay for them next year to take the PSAT. They would take the PSAT NMSQT, which is what they currently do now. And then the following year, parents can opt in and pay for that service for their children. And then this upcoming school year, all of our 11th graders would take the PSAT NMSQT test. Again, we do have some students who may not want to do that. They may be already on track with the SAT, and that's okay, but the division would provide that opportunity to them because of the different opportunities that come with that for our students. So that's kind of what it would look like over the next 2 years. And then there's a couple other additional next steps that I want to share with you tonight. First, right now, we are in the process of reviewing and revising our curriculum frameworks based on the information we've received from the PSAT. Our secondary math curriculum revision committees are going to be meeting this summer, and we're looking at ways to embed additional math processing goals within our curriculum guides and our units of study. Our middle school reading specialist will be creating a long-range plan for incorporating evidence-based strategies for vocabulary and morphology into our secondary literacy study. And if you may recall, this was actually on our plan 2 years ago, and we had to kind of stop that a little bit with the pandemic. So this is something that we'll be returning to and incorporating in to our secondary literacy model. We're also planning to expand student use of the Khan Academy. When I speak with a college board, all of our students connect to Khan Academy, which is wonderful, but we want to look for some more opportunities for our students to use Khan Academy to help them as they're planning and preparing for the SAT. We also want to continue to offer our AP boot camps. If you recall, we started those last year. We're going to continue those this year. And we're also looking at adding a new element to Summer Academy. And this, again, is contingent upon staffing, having the staffing to do it. But we're looking at adding some seminars to help our students with college and career readiness. So in those seminars, An example of that would be helping them prepare using their PSAT data to prepare for the SAT, also helping them with some resume writing, and also completing the Common App, which we know opens at the beginning of August. We're also looking at expanding our offerings within the program of studies to include assistance with college preparation. We currently have an SAT preparation course, but we're looking at what other courses can we add to help our students with some of those things I just mentioned, like resume writing and things of that nature. And we're also looking at what other AP courses our students might be good fit for. For example, a couple years ago, we added AP Computer Science Principles because when we get that College Board report, it told us that some of our students would be good fits for that course, so we added it to our program of studies. We've added dual enrollment for the coming school year, so those are just examples of how we'll use it. We're also looking at taking our school web pages and our division web pages and adding more resources to that to help families and supporting them with how to use the PSAT and prepare for SATs, and college and career readiness in general. And then last but not least, I've been working with the College Board quite a bit. We're partnering with them to do some professional development next year for our counselors and for our teachers as well. So those are just a few of the things that we're planning to do based upon the data that we've received. And so that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions for me?
No, just a quick comment. I was glad to see the next step, leveraging the PSAT. I don't know that the community fully understands how much data how much we're leveraging that data to drive relooks, that curriculum and those frameworks. So that's important. But then also, as you said, the division website is an excellent resource, and to ensure that we introduce to parents and families how they can leverage those tools that are embedded in the PSAT to assist with all of those things that you mentioned. Because I know it didn't occur to our family that those tools were available until much later, and we have a little bit more insight. So yeah, very, very helpful, very helpful.
The College Board and I've been speaking, and our representative will actually do parent information sessions. They'll partner with our high schools. So there's a lot of opportunities coming forward that we want to make available to our families.
That's great.
Moving the PSAT and MSQT to 11th grade rather than 10th grade, does that still provide enough time for those 11th graders who are looking at applying for college to take the SAT once or twice in time to get the results sent with their applications?
It should, yes, and that's why we want to we want that 9th grade opportunity for our students, but it should work just fine. A lot of other divisions do that for their students, and some of the opportunities that will open up for them as far as connecting them. We have students now who take it in 11th grade, but they pay to take it in 11th grade when our 10th graders are taking it. So we're really just kind of flipping that option for our students, and it should be okay.
Okay.
It's still offered in the fall, correct?
Correct. The that particular test has to be offered in the fall because they're competing for that scholarship. The 9th grade test can actually be offered at our discretion, so we're looking at wintertime for that.
Okay.
Yeah, for 9.
And we'll have to heavy messaging to make sure everybody's prepared for
Yes,
the adjust.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, and what I was thinking was, to Brett's point, that if you take it in 11th grade in the fall, then you can still hit. I remember taking SAT in, I think it was December, early December.
Okay.
Yes.
They'd be able to knock out both.
Yeah. And scoring is turned very quickly now.
Yes. One thing I was just going to say about the benchmarks, I don't want to kind of let this go by, is I think we're going to continue to see this because pandemic hit every
Yes.
single person in every single area, and so we have to show a little bit of grace with the benchmarks. It doesn't mean we're not working, doesn't mean kids aren't progressing, but I think we're just going to see it affect. So really just looking at the numbers with grace and just knowing that, yep, it did affect things, and we've got to push forward and figure out a way to move on.
We'll start to incrementally climb back up.
Yeah, absolutely,
go.
absolutely.
I agree.
So,
Thank you.
anybody else?
Yeah, that was very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Skinner.
Absolutely.
So we have, next we have Dr. Amanda Corbett-Staten. She actually has 2 presentations. The first one is on retention and recruitment. She's our Associate Director of Human Resources. And then her second presentation is on new employee support. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Corbett-Staten.
I can't see that far. Okay, I gotta do it this way. Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Shandor, Chairwoman Geraltz, and members of the board. Tonight, I will give you an update on Goal 3, staff support. And this is just a component of this strategic plan, but I would like to provide you an update as we recruit, hire, support, and retain a diverse staff that meets our highest standards. And so as you will remember from years past, I always start with this slide where we see our number of vacancies on the very first day of school. We know that schools are facing high levels of vacancies across our country and in our division as well, as just mentioned by our chairwoman. And you will see that we had 31 resignations, 31 vacancies, excuse me. The reasons remain the same: late resignations in July, people relocating and moving, and just the dearth of a candidate pool. However, through the leadership of Dr. Shandor and Dr. Vladu, many creative staffing solutions were made, and so all of our classrooms had an adult in them at the beginning of the year, and our staffing picture looks much better now than it did at that time. For our new hires, since FY18, about 47% of our new licensed hires have come from our surrounding districts, and about 11% have come from our Virginia college programs, and the remaining percentages come from the sources as listed below. And so as the majority of our hires come from our surrounding districts and our Virginia college programs, we do have to stay competitive with our recruiting. And I'll give you an update on some of the current things that we're doing right now. But before we move into that, I would like to look at non-licensed hiring trends. And you will see on this slide, as we do annually in November, we also held 2 non-licensed job fairs in the upper and lower parts of our county, targeted towards substitute employees, bus drivers, and custodians. And you will notice that since FY19, there is these hiring trends, they denote a decrease, in people able to come into work for various reasons. So you definitely do see the mark of the pandemic on this data. We are certain that when we review this data in the future, that this year will start to show that uptick that Mr. Higginbotham talked about, as we know people are ready to come back out and to be in schools and to come and support us. So for our recruitment strategies, I'm always excited to highlight these. This is the fun part of the job. Well, all of it's fun, but this is the most fun. We just had our job jamboree, our second annual job jamboree, and we had over 112 interviews that day at Grafton Middle School, and we thank you so much, Chairwoman Geraltz, for coming out and for supporting us. We have so far at least 15 hires for the 22-23 school year who've already been extended offers and who've said yes to ICSD. So we're very, very excited. Our principals are excited about looking at that list and calling folks, and so we definitely know that that's a huge recruitment effort for us, and we're glad so many people come out to us. We are in full swing of our recruiting efforts at college and university education job fairs. In fact, today we had someone who was at the school board office, and our secretary, Mrs. Miller, said, I have your recruiting things all ready to go. Where do you want me to put them? So Ms. Parr and Ms. Welch are headed up to Longwood in the next couple of days, and we have some opportunities with CNU coming up. We did some recruitment at JMU. So we've been across the circuit, and many of these fairs are in person again now, and so we're very, very excited to actually meet people face to face and let them know that YCSD is where they should make their home. All right, so now we know once we recruit teachers and other staff to YCSD, we have to retain them. Taking a bottom line approach as we do annually, these retention percentages listed on the screen exclude the total number of employees who separated from YCSD for any reason. And as you'll see, our overall retention percentages for licensed and non-licensed employees have decreased. As previously shared, this pattern is on par with nationwide trends in education. We continue to focus our efforts on retaining our workforce, as we know that consistency has great benefits for students and the health of our organization. And these strategies will be further discussed a little bit later as I present my next presentation. But I would like for us to look at the top 3 reasons employees indicate for their separation from YCSD over the last 2 years. So typically across the top for the very first reason of separations, whether it's a licensed employee or a non-licensed employee, is retirement, right? The last 2 years it's been retirement, 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 retirement. Well, now you see family obligations in the FY21 data as a reported reason for folks to step back and to make decisions that were best for themselves and their families. And we know we felt those impacts, and we know we talked about them, and we know, again, we had to creatively staff in our schools. The data is the data. Now, what we're excited about is the opportunity to share with you some of these retention strategies and some of these things that we're doing. And so the working conditions survey from VDOE, as we know, sometimes as things are coming out, there are always changes, right? So we thought that the working conditions survey was going to be in every 2 years. We survey everybody. Well, this year, Dr. Vladu was informed, nope, this year it's just secondary schools. But we still know that it is important to be able to hear from our folks out there in the field and things of that nature. So Dr. Shandor has a multitude of ways that he hears from employees, but in particular regarding the working conditions survey, this year it was administered to secondary schools, and I know that we're waiting for that data to come back, and once it comes back, Dr. Vladu presents it and gives it to each school. He shares it, of course, with the superintendent as well as the board. And then decisions are made based upon what does that feedback say and how do we address the needs of employees. So we're always listening, always responding. And whether it is, annual survey or they change it up on us, we have strategic mechanisms to hear employees' voices. Compensation, you all have a priority, and you have, shared with Dr. Shandor, and he shared with the whole team that compensation remains a priority for our board. We know that through some of the presentations Dr. Vladu has given this year, we're not really where we want to be, and we are working to make strides to get there. So just know that compensation still is something that we're focused on, and folks are very, very excited about hearing the good things about the budget and all of those things, for us, so that it really should sweeten the deal to come to us rather than staying in their own districts. Just saying. And then benefits, through the work we did with adopting, our new health insurance plan, you all ensured and made sure that we were competitive. And so I think to date, we have, the lowest benefits program in terms of employee cost in our region. And so that's really something to celebrate when you think about, all of the things and decisions that people have to make when they do decide to join a school division from another one. They look at all of these things. And so we thank you very much for our competitive benefits. Now I will give you an opportunity to hear about our EO5 report. As you will remember, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act requires that we report this information biennially, and that last year, because of the pandemic, 2020 was our reporting year, but then it ended up being closed, finally opened up in July of 2021, and then we submitted our data. So that means that 2022 is another formal reporting year for us, kind of back to back, and the window opens September 27th, but this is the snapshot data. They ask us to pull the data on October 1st, so you are seeing the data that we will submit when it comes time to do that. So on this slide, we see that the overall percentage of minority students and of Black African American students has increased from 2019. You also see that those demographics are, while they're close, we definitely do see that, there's some ebbs and some flows, and we know that demographics is very transitory as people move into your division and move out of your division. It's a metric that we really don't have control over, except what do we do to educate all of the students who are in front of us, and how do we ensure that we have a staff that is ready to meet that challenge? So for our new hire status, still does not closely, for classroom teachers, it does not closely yet match our student diversity numbers, our population there, but we also know that we must redouble our efforts to recruit a diverse workforce. And in this climate, I think, we really have to work hard to ensure that we're open, that we're responsive, and that, people feel that this is a place where they can grow. And that's what we are endeavoring to do. our classroom teacher status. So as related to total classroom teacher status, we also acknowledge that there is work we must continue to do to close the gap between teacher and student minority and Black African American representation. It does not please us to have the difference from 2019 on this slide, be every indicator leading with a negative. But I will say that, first you see the data, then you have to respond to the data. And so we're well prepared to begin to continue to respond in ways that are creative, again, and that let people know that YCSD is a place where you can come and do your best work for students. For our administrative status, the numbers in blue indicate where workforce percentages exceed their corresponding student population. You will notice no changes as it relates to SBO, officials, administrators, and managers, and increases from 2019 in consultants and supervisors of instruction. This positive increase continues to be a direct result of Dr. Shandor's focus on how we as an organization really develop from our internal pipeline. And so, he leads by example, and we're very grateful for that. Now, this is exciting. So well, I think I can claim several now. It's been 3. So
More than a couple.
Yes, more than a couple. We continue to outreach directly to make partnerships with our HBCUs and really trying to be present and so that they can know us by name. So we have annual meetings with them, we talk on the phone, those types of things. And for Hampton University in particular, for speech language pathology, we had 2 staff members who worked directly to help recruit speech language pathologists from Hampton University, as we know that is definitely another hard to staff position. 2 years ago, we came with the idea in the program of studies. I think I went after another colleague and we talked about having an internal teaching pipeline, right? We talked about Teachers for Tomorrow. We talked about having a course for kids to take. Fast forward to the next year, the course appears in the program of studies. People sign up for it. And so I'm so excited. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm excited. We have 4 students who are in our Teachers for Tomorrow program, and we're very excited to partner with CNU. I was talking to the teacher of the course after I partnered with my colleagues in instruction and Ms. Dockery, the building principal at Bruton. And CNU said, because I was trying to see if the kids could actually go with us on a recruiting event. That was a little far-fetched, but you might as well ask. And so she says, no, Amanda, but I'll tell you what we can do. We can come on site and we can give them a summative culminating experience where they work on their resumes, learn about what courses should I take in college if I really want to be a teacher, and really hear from a university about what it means to study to be a teacher, what opportunities are out there, any types of internships that they might be interested in. So I was very, very excited. So Ms. Dockery, and I think her name is Sarah Hogbrood. She is excited at CNU, and so they're going to come out and they're going to do an on-site day at Bruton, and we're going to celebrate. So I'm going to go up and we're going to make sure you all know about it, but I really am excited because the more we talk about this one little piece of our whole strategic recruiting plan, hey, it can be a big piece, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm very, very excited about that. We also continue to train our hiring managers on implicit bias and things of that nature, just making sure that when we interview you, we're really looking at your skill set. And to that end, we also have a protocol that we developed 2 years ago with a team of people, all types from across the division, for behavioral interviews. And so we really have a tool that gets to speak to us from your experience instead of hypotheticals, so that we can really better understand what it is that you can do and where are some gaps or things that we may need to provide you some assistance should you be the candidate that we choose. So we recognize the interconnectedness amongst all these pieces, but this concludes my report on this topic, and I take any questions before I go to my second.
Do we do anything specific for some of the very hard to fill instructional positions, foreign language, the advanced math and science classes that might only have one teacher in a building that covers those?
I do know that depending upon the nature of the position, that a principal can make a direct request to Human Resources for that position possibly to be converted to one of the creative staffing solutions we had to come to this year, a virtual position. So it is not done lightly. These things are taken on a case-by-case basis. So we look at the facts and circumstances around it. Is the person out for an extended period of time? You know, do they have a teacher, again, who might be out? Is it a vacancy? How long has it been a vacancy? And then we do things, we source our sub-pool, we contact with universities who are the graduates, but we have had cases where we've had to come and make a special request for a class to be converted to a virtual class in order to have a Virginia licensed qualified teacher.
I don't know what the possibility would be, especially as college job fairs are going back to in-person with some sort of, even for college student, a small signing bonus for those hard to fill positions. I don't know, something like that would be viable or to look into. It might help get some more people interested in it.
I know Dr. Shandor and the cabinet team have, talked about that, and we think about, funding and things of that nature, but it definitely is in the works. And I know that, through the Title II grant, we have a limited amount of funds for relocation and things of that nature, but just in terms of it being our practice that we were, implement with fidelity, that requires a little bit more than we have at this moment, but I know they're working on it.
Through the pandemic, are we, now that we're coming out, are we still seeing the same needs as far as special education, elementary school math, and
I do
so it's
believe,
all still the
yeah,
same?
I think that the critical shortage list, Dr. Vadu, comes out the end of the school year, and it'll have on there for next year, so we'll wait to see what that looks like, but yes,
It's
for
gonna be
us,
the
we're
same.
seeing the same trends and patterns.
Is there any way to look at it when someone leaves the school division? Like, I know we have it if they're leaving to a neighboring division, but is that other, I forget what it says, accepting another job or something like that, when it's completely outside of the education field, when they're just leaving the school division, do we get those percentages too?
We do have where people are leaving the field of education. But barring anything other than that as a descriptor, we have not delved into those specifics to date because we feel that it is.
We're not encouraging them to leave. So we don't want to share a lot of data about going to NASA.
I get it, but I was just wondering if that through the difficulties with the pandemic, how
many
much that's
people lost
increased
because of
or
that,
something like that, and if we'll see a decline as we start to come out of
We
that.
certainly hope so.
And we will have some data at the end of the year on that I'm sure we can, provide, because we do track it. We just don't have like the specific industry that folks are going into.
Yeah, everything we're talking about is data driven, so I would just offer that in that data collection plan, and as we do that we're able to quick turn on the information. Because I know that the last 2 years have been anomalies, and we're gonna, again, we really need to understand the information early and through the middle of next year, not necessarily wait till the end of the school year next year, for instance.
We do this year, the Virginia Department of Education has instituted something called a PEC report. I don't know really what PEC stands for. We live in a world of acronyms, but it has to do with who's leaving. It's really the who's leaving report or why did they leave report. But they're giving us 17 predetermined identified reasons that you must be able to code data for a state report. And so some of the flexibility, that we had is gone. It has kind of been across the state. I think they're also looking at some of the same consistent data to be able to look at trends across the state. And so we do have 17 identified descriptors. And so the report will be twice a year. At the middle of the year, we'll pull for non-licensed and licensed staff, and at the end of the year, we just do licensed staff. So we will have some metrics ongoing, and at any time that you all would like to know or for us to monitor trends, we can definitely do that because we collect data every time someone is hired or submits a letter of resignation or retirement. So we do have that.
But wasn't at the beginning of this school year, our biggest challenge were the late retirements on both the licensed and non-licensed side, right? So hopefully we don't encounter that this year. I mean, retirements and
We made up for it mid-year.
July and
There's been a
August,
lot of people retiring
They
mid-year
have.
too.
yeah, that's a great
Yeah,
point.
Yeah.
It's been a struggle, that's for sure.
It is, and there's still
Well, I think we're gonna see a change, and that number is gonna continue to go lower with the amount that we're gonna get from college, just because we're seeing nationally that people aren't going into the field.
Yep.
And so I think nationwide, statewide, there's gonna have to be a lot of creativity to get
Exactly,
people to go into the field
Exactly.
and.
exactly.
And this has been predicted for years.
Yes.
When I first came on the board, that was one of the things, one of the classes I took at one of the conferences talked about is the teacher shortage, and it's gonna get worse, worse, worse until, hopefully things change and it gets better, so.
Well, it looks like we're about to get some information on it, but I think retention sort of starts at induction and what we can provide for them to be successful from day one.
Yeah.
I think we have to continue to be creative with the things we're willing to do and gonna try to do. And
Yeah, there's other industries, nursing, for example, healthcare, that have taken a lead on unique approaches and shortening the timeframes to licensing, those kinds of things. To take it out of a traditional 4-year track. That's a little, I'm getting ahead of us, but anyways.
But in the state did a few years ago with the research change, went from 5 years to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I do remember that.
And we've also adjusted the requirements to be a substitute teacher and stuff like that as well. So there are more people eligible and
Definitely.
applying, and we've seen an increase because of that
Definitely
too.
have, yes, we have.
Thankfully.
Well, and again, I've said this as many times as people will listen to me say it. I think the model of going to school for a 4-year degree and student teaching, I think, has kind of gone by the wayside. I think it's more of a position where you can, more of an apprentice position, get some education, but then really get your feet in the door and actually be working with kids and other educators who are experienced. And I think that's where we're going to see most.
And being in,
Hopefully see where it
being in
heads.
those classrooms and being standing next to a master teacher, so you can
Yeah,
really
that's where you
see
learn
it, learn it, feel it, breathe it, all of that,
Because our colleges are not teaching people how to teach, they're teaching background information.
I was just looking at the retention strategies, and of the 3 strategies, I think that what's going to become even more important than compensation in future years is going to be working conditions. And I think that people are going to be looking for work-life balance, and they're going to be looking for support. And you were talking about the survey that the state does and all. And forgive me for being ignorant, but do we have a way that people can voice concerns in confidentiality?
Yes, sir.
We do.
Yes, sir.
And how is that?
Well, we always, Dr. Vladu and I have a very open door policy. So people, come in and barring that it isn't something that's shared with us that requires us to act, because we do have mandates that we have to follow. That's definitely one way, but also we hope that folks can go to their building principal in confidence or their site-based supervisor. I always share that with them upon orientation and when I'm talking to them that, oftentimes the fastest solution to the problem that you have is the person who knows the most about it, and let's get take care of it. However, there are times where you can't go to that person, and we understand that. And so you can just, come up the chain. I know Dr. Shandor operates, several different, opportunities for folks to speak with him, and confidentiality as well. So we recognize that, but one of the things that we want to be able to do is for employees to trust us enough to trust the process. And if there's something that we need to address, if there's something that we can do to improve those working conditions or things of that nature, that's what we want to do, because what we're here to do, our common mission every day, is serving children. And so we've got to understand that we step in with that in common. So if we can agree that that's what we have in common, we can take care of anything else.
There you go. The Let's Talk app too.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
we do have the Let's
true.
Talk app. How can I forget Let's Talk?
I had a feeling she was going to chime in if somebody didn't say it.
So can we talk about the next one?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so thank you again. Oh, I'll be introduced. Dr. Shandor,
You were already introduced, go ahead. Keep rolling.
So formal, so formal.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shandor, Chairwoman Garros, and members of the board again. Now I'm going to move to another part of Goal 3 about new employee support. I'm excited about it. I can kind of click. So every month I have the prestigious opportunity to talk to all of our new employees, and I look forward to it. I get to wear the shirt. Dr. Shandor makes fun of me. Even though we have 3 other colors, I wear this one just because I know it's his favorite.
I see you caught my best side on the picture on the screen.
You're talking to employees, so when Dr. Shandor's calendar doesn't allow him to come at orientation, Dr. Vladu always ensures that he comes so that there's a cabinet level official who welcomes employees to our school division. And again, the orientation topics, are the same. We used to do 2 orientations a month. We did one for regular full-time employees with the school division, and then we did one for substitutes. And we came together and because our people come from all of our extra agencies and all that stuff, so we were like 2 times a month and it was all good. We figured out how to do 1 orientation a month and then have a breakout session where employees who are full-time stay in one session to hear about benefits and things of that nature, and then substitute employees go with Ms. Osborne to learn about being a substitute. So we have an opportunity to whittle the schedule but not sacrificed any of the quality. So we're very, very, very excited about that. And you will notice orientation still is on Teams. We have had large groups of employees come in, and so to find an area that's large enough to host 42 people or 37 people means that you have to say, hey, Bruton, can we come up? Or, Coventry, can we come up? Well, then you're looking at space that kids need during the day. So we just decided that for the remainder of this year, we're going to stay virtual, and we will recalculate that coming up for next school year to hopefully we can get back to an in-person orientation. So this is new teacher orientation. Last year it was held in person at Grafton High School. And as you're aware, it's an annual 3-day event that includes the standard orientation topics where we welcome folks to YCSD, communicate our culture of excellence and inclusivity, and model effective learning strategies. And beyond this, we know that there is a new mentor program which is in place for teachers. Look at those. Don't they look so happy? Even behind, can't you see them? So this is the standard slide about mentor programs. And this is a new picture. This is our group this year. So we had, let me get my numbers right. This year we had over 31 new mentors come and be trained with Dr. Chris Garys this year. We know that, the first year teachers and those new to the profession need support, but so do experienced new teachers who are joining us. And we are glad to be able to provide that differentiated support. So we did do our training this year in person for mentor trainings. That was a lot of fun with those 2 days with Dr. Garys. This year for 21-22, this is a calendar of our mentor professional development. So one thing that was different this year is that we had 4 mentor sessions where folks come on to Teams. And they have a pre-designed protocol that really allows them to have meaningful conversation and talk about mentor experiences so that I can learn what you're doing at your school is working, you can learn what I'm doing, we can all go out and try these things, and we come back and talk. And so I was really nervous, and at first I was like, oh my God, these people are gonna hate it, they're gonna say we're not doing this, we can't have another meeting, da da da. That's not what they said. So these are just some of the feedback, that we received. And I think when you really provide a platform for folks to talk together around a common purpose and learn from each other, they are as excited as ever, even if they are still as tired as ever. They're very excited whenever our division allows them time to talk to one another and learn new strategies and new practices, because we have kids in common. So we want to figure out how to make it work. Now I have some data to show you. So these are our new teacher mid-year survey results, and these are some of the indicators of support that we look at. And so you'll see in the green bar is from 2021, the blue bar is from 2022. So you'll see across that everything remains relatively the same except for perceptions of the mentor program. And so one of the things that we looked at when the lead mentors and I looked at this data, we talked really about, we are the only school division that I am aware of in our local region that provides a formal mentor to all teachers new to YCSD. Some teachers are surprised by that. They're like, well, I went to the formal program, do I have to do it again? And yes, but it's differentiated for you. And so we have these, the mentors have permission to design the program within the parameters of what that teacher needs. And so we really found that. But that was really the only thing that, when the leads and I looked at the data, that we could really ascertain. There were a few qualitative comments, I've already been through mentoring, I don't know, and those are some things different than I have seen in years past. And so, we're gonna just hope it's an anomaly. I'm gonna continue monitoring this metric, and if it's not an anomaly, then definitely we need to retool. But to me, really, this just kind of, goes in with 2 years of the pandemic. We got all of this, I gotta do what? That kind of thing, because when the new teachers talk about the support that they have and their morale level, that's how they feel. So it's just the program itself that they kind of think, nah, I don't need this, but we know we're there to support them. But here is where we need to celebrate. So we know that we talked last year about peer observation and it being one of the core tenets of our mentor program, because again, right back to that, I see you doing it in your classroom, I can do it in my classroom. If I need help to do reading groups, Mr. Schaefer, you can come on over here and help me get the reading groups going. And so in 2021, for new teachers responding who were observed, 45% said that they were observed, right? If you look over to the green bar in 2022, 58% this year at mid-year said that they were observed. This is a peer. This is a peer colleague, their mentor or another peer doing. Isn't that fantastic? And then in 2021, 27% of them said they had an opportunity to observe a colleague. This year, 49% said they had an opportunity to observe a colleague. They speak so highly about these peer observations, just getting in and seeing it. I really think this is something to celebrate. This is how you know when you're operating in a high trust environment, when you can open your door and let people come in and watch you and then have a conversation about it, and vice versa. And we know we don't just want our new teachers or experienced new teachers observed, we want them to see. And then to be able to have those rich dialogues. And so I'm very, very excited, and we celebrated really big about this. So this is hard work here. It requires, getting a substitute, which we fund through our Title II grant. It requires making arrangements with the building principal. It requires rescheduling, because in January and in December, we were in a different place. We were covering outages and all that stuff, but still, this was a priority, and they got it done. And I'm just so proud of that work. Because it shows that we're operating at a very high level for kids, and that's really, really good.
Can I get clarification while you're on that slide? So this is across the division, not just within the mentor program?
This is just the mentor program.
Oh, okay.
Just
That's
the
what you're
mentor
saying.
program. Yes, ma'am, just the mentor program. Okay, so we have, all of those new teachers.
Yeah.
What should be the goal? Is the goal one peer observation?
The goal is one peer observation per quarter.
Per quarter, thank you. Okay.
In both ways.
Got
So you observe someone and someone observes you once each quarter.
Seems like a heavy lift to me. That's good.
Yeah. And they were energized by it.
Okay.
All right. So now I'm excited about this too. So for our non-licensed staff, this year we have our custodial department implemented a custodial training program. We aligned our training with the industry leader, International Sanitation and Supply Association's Cleaning Management Institute. And so it's a train-the-trainer model. And right now, all of our area supervisors have been trained. And by March of 2023, our goal in the division is that all of our custodians will at least have gone through the basic training for this and all be certified basic. And Tier 2 is voluntary, so they could go on for more opportunities for additional training. So we're very happy about that, as well as lead bookkeepers. And really, they said they want me to term it secretary mentor, and I said okay. But we have two, so we have an elementary and a secondary secretary identified, and they're the go-to people for new bookkeepers because we know that they need support too. And just some additional support structures really that are for everyone. Supervisor and open door policy, really building that relationship with your supervisor, and just having good communication. We definitely know that those are some support structures, excuse me. So for some of our next steps as we bring this strategic plan to a close, we administer the Virginia Working Conditions Survey, new teacher check-ins, and then completing the comprehensive onboarding system for all employee groups. So we are at the final step of that, and now we have an automated way so that when a new instructional employee is hired, our instruction department gets a notice so that they know to go out and provide support and things of that nature. So we're making moves, people. We're making moves. Thank you. That concludes my report. I welcome any questions that you have. I know I probably talked too much too long. I'm sorry.
Mr. Richardson?
So the working conditions survey, we had one that we used before in the past, years ago. I don't know how many years ago it was, 2-3 years ago. But I think it was one that we had within the division. Now this one is through the state, is that correct? So it's more commonplace for everybody across the state to use. Are you finding that any better, or do you even remember the old one that we had?
Well, I think the old one predated me.
Okay.
Because I think that was in spring of 2019, and I came back in July of 2019.
That was
But-
a collaboration. So Dr. Carroll, when he was in HR,
Okay.
he led that with a few principals, and then Ms. Dockery was on that committee. I can't remember if Dr. Hutton was, but then we did with the NEA. No,
Right.
YEA, my bad.
And I know that a lot of times with surveys, it's subjective, and a lot of times when you have your own, it's easier to put what you want for your division in there. I was just wondering.
I think what the state adopted is very similar to ours as far as categories
Okay.
for assessing or assessing what teachers feel is what it's like to work in their school.
Right.
All of those different
working
categories.
conditions, why people are leaving, that sort of
Yes,
thing.
all that stuff. So I think it's very similar to what we created years ago.
Well, we didn't create, we took it from the new teacher center.
We kind of created it too.
Got it. Well, thank you.
Yes,
That
and
answers
the
my-
DOE adopted that, I think, Jim, the next year.
And they took in large part what the new teacher said.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great information for us, and Dr. Vladu and Dr. Corman-Staten share that information with our principals as soon as we receive it,
Yep.
so that they have some action steps to improve in those areas.
Thank you.
I have another question about the mentor teacher program.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
in each school, you already have people who've chosen to be a mentor, they've been trained to be a mentor, and then when you have a new teacher, the principal would then match a mentor with a new teacher. Is the mentor a one-on-one, or someone could be a mentor to multiple people in a building?
So for our teachers who come out with no experience, novice, brand new, just got in the classroom, our program recommends that they have a one-to-one mentor. Sometimes principals will call with a request and say, hey, Amanda, I really think that this teacher, because of her skill set, they're on the same grade level, she can take two. Can we do that? So I can approve more than one. And then for teachers who have experience, a mentor can mentor up to 4.
Okay.
Yeah, up to 4 teachers. Some of them go above and beyond, and they have 6. And again, we talk about those, but yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And the principal, the mentor program at the school, the principal makes the matches. I just do the oversight from central office. So it's the principal having the conversations, and then the lead mentor knows what the principal's desire is, and so they may communicate, they may do the match, but the principal's the one who does that, as well as recommend who needs to come to mentor training.
When you said you were looking at that, the data, the perceptions thing, and sometimes just having someone up in your space and checking on you on a regular basis, we don't perceive that well, but really it's the intention behind it, which is
ma'am.
we're giving you support and
My experience talking to some new teachers and all is that their mentors are more up alongside rather than being, one to check off and make sure that it's there to make them comfortable to help them out. And then the lead mentor then will work with them too.
That would be the desire, because it looks like for new teachers, we're relying very, very heavily on this mentor relationship. I've got a lead teacher dynamic in their peers, but relying heavily on that. Are there any incentives for the lead mentor and mentors?
Oh, yes, sir, they're compensated.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I thought,
Yes,
but
sir.
I was in the additional training. Okay. good.
And then there are additional trainings, yes, sir.
Sure,
They
sure.
are able to, participate in any of the trainings that Dr. Gary's had. Last year, we had a whole series for existing mentors around topics that they said they wanted to have, like mentoring a veteran teacher. We're halfway there, what now? Those types of things. And so I really am trying to ensure that the PD matches their need as a mentor. They wear so many hats, right?
Yeah,
And our
absolutely.
division is so good about PD, but I really want them to know that, when we're together, take all that stuff away and you are wearing your mentor hat. This is purely through that lens because that's the only way we can strengthen those muscles is when we just devote focus to them.
And we have increased challenge with teachers that come in mid-year
Yes, sir.
and that dynamic too.
Yes,
So,
sir.
no, this.
A mid-year start is never easy.
No, very
It's
difficult.
never easy. But we're here to support.
Yep.
We can do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Any other questions, comments? All right,
Thank you, Dr.
very
Cook.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
We
thank
appreciate
you,
it.
thank you, thank
A
you.
lot.
All right, last but not least.
All right, we have saved the best for last.
All right, our final topic relates to our strategic plan.
All right, thank you, Ms. Karaltz. Board members, this evening, Ms. Catherine Goff, our Public Relations and Communications Officer, is going to provide you with an update related to the development of the FY23-27 strategic plan. Ms. Goff.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Shandor. I do appreciate this opportunity to share an update on the developments as we work to develop our new 5-year strategic plan. As I proceed through these slides, some of this information may seem familiar to you as you've taken part in workshops as we began the development process, but it is our first time truly at a work session sharing this information with our entire community. So again, before initiating work on the new plan, the board and staff reviewed aspects of our current plan. As Dr. Corbin-Staton just shared, that will be ending this summer. It guided our work from 2017 through the summer of 2022. And at the time it was adopted in May of 2017, the board voted to carry forward the division's mission statement, the beliefs, and the 5 goal areas. Portions of each had been reflected components that were adopted in either 2008 or 2013. So staff then used the stakeholder input to craft 37 new or revised objectives. This was actually an improvement from our prior plan. I think you recall we had 56 objectives previously. 37 is still a large number to manage, but what we've discovered over the more recent years is it's the structure of our objectives that we really want to examine. As you just saw, we have some that are written as action steps. They are something that can be completed in a year or two. There are some that have measurable targets throughout the 5 years. And then we have some that might be referred to as a key performance indicator where we're really reflecting back on what occurred over the prior year. So as we began planning for a new strategic plan, we really identified this as an opportunity to take a completely new approach. And the intent for our new plan is to, number 1, craft a vision statement. This is what YCSD aspires to achieve in the future, and it really builds that picture in people's minds of what they think of when they think of YCSD. It would explain and craft a new mission statement, who we serve, what we do, and how we bring that vision to life, and of course, sharing what we hold most important, our core values. Additionally, it's important that we learn our community's priorities so we can develop those measurable goals to guide our work over the next 5 years. Staff will then identify the action steps to propel the division forward on that path and the key performance indicators we will use to measure our progress towards achieving the goals. So I think we recognize the work involved in a total overhaul of the division's strategic plan and structure after 15 years. With all that is on the plate right now, the board recognized that it would be an opportunity to submit a request for proposals, an RFP for consulting services. We did receive 3 bids. Staff reviewed those bids and selected Insight Education. This is a company with more than 20 years of experience supporting school districts around the country in developing their strategic plans, supporting accelerating professional growth and student learning. And they break that work into 3 phases. So the first phase we've conducted through some workshops with the board and some staff meetings to conduct needs assessment and gather data. We're just now jumping into the design phase. This is really where the crux of the work is going to happen, and we will establish those priorities, the goals, and the theory of action. And then finally, upon board approval, we will implement action steps and reporting plan to keep the board and community informed of our progress. Now, stakeholder involvement is obviously a key component in the development and ultimately the success of a strategic plan. Yes, the lights were dimmed in this room as we took this picture because they were looking at a PowerPoint presentation. This is the division's strategic plan steering committee. This is the first time we have actually developed a steering committee. We have always involved stakeholders in the development of our plan, but it's typically been through just surveys or focus groups. This team kicked off their first meeting in January 24th, and they've been meeting about monthly. They might meet a little bit more as we move into more of the meat of their work. I was very excited. This was one of our opportunities to be in person. You'll note it was just before we were able to lift the mask mandates. So very excited that next week we'll be back together as a group and really be able to interact and see each other. But it does include office staff, school board office staff, school administrators, teachers, family members, community members, business members from around our community, and of course students. And that's who you see speaking right there, is a student from Burton High School sharing some of his feedback on the work that was underway. We then conducted a stakeholder survey. This was shared with our family, staff, and community through email and social media. That just took place just a few weeks ago. I'm going to scoot forward for just a second here. So this is, I know a lot of graphics on that screen for you, but the data right there is not critical at this time. It's just to give you a glimpse of showing we did have more than 2,000 respondents to our survey. Well, that seems potentially low since we have 12,500 families and students in our community. I will tell you that previous strategic plan surveys never exceeded just over about 1,000. So we doubled our stakeholder input in this one. And I do believe it's the brevity and the clarity of this survey. So we asked simple questions in the beginning, the demographic questions. How are you connected to YCSD? Asking if they were the parent or family member, employee, community member, or student. From there, they were able to select the schools that they are connected to, and in this case, they could select more than one, as many schools as they have a relationship with. And then we also asked if there's a program their student might be participating in or how they might be connected and supported in the division. So military connections, gifted learners, students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, and English learners. So all of those were the first 3 questions. From there, we had a list of 13 potential priorities for this strategic plan. And those were developed by the division's executive leadership team in one of our work sessions. So the respondents were asked to select the top 5 priorities from among that list of 13. What you're seeing on the screen right now is, in order, the first 5 priorities for all stakeholder groups. So those are recruitment and retention. I think we've heard about that. Personal pathways for students, safety and security, preparing students for post-graduation success, and student mental health and wellness. Now on the screen now are the remainder of those priority topics, and they again are listed in descending order. And I will point out that we take the fact that fiscal responsibility on that list, that it's our community saying they trust us with the funds and how we are operating as a division, and they didn't see that as a need for an overhaul area for us. But while these may not have been among the top 5 in the overall response rate, those demographic questions that I just showed you, we have built that into Power BI, our wonderful program that Dave Carwile supports. So he has loaded all of this data in there, and now we can drill down into each of those subgroups, each of those demographic questions that we asked to see what might the particular priorities be in those subgroups. For example, I think we just spoke about this during one of the prior presentations. Employee relations and work culture ranked as the number 2 priority amongst staff who responded to that, but understandably that may not have been a parent or student priority in that area. And while student mental health, we saw that as the 5th highest priority for all stakeholders. Interestingly enough, for students who completed the survey, it was their number 3 priority. So really having an opportunity to listen to the various groups. The next three questions were actually probably the hardest for our community. This is open-ended. These were the open-ended comments where they could share anything and everything that was on their mind. They were asked to share what YCSD should start, stop, and continue doing as part of our next strategic plan. So our firm is going through each individual response to identify the potential trend that exists in those statements, what might be emerging from that data. And the steering committee is meeting next week, and they'll begin looking at some other division data, some of what we present to you on a regular basis. They'll be looking at these survey results, and then they're going to begin identifying the possible themes and goal areas to bring back to the board as for consideration. And then we're going to go back into the stakeholder engagement. So the next steps now are that we will hold the traditional focus groups. These will be in mid to late April, and they will again involve school administrators, teachers, staff, families, student, and community members. So the focus groups will be providing feedback to the steering committee to help them guide their work and continue to reflect and revise as they move forward with their next steps. And finally, per policy, we will post a draft of the plan, bring it before the board for a public hearing, and then hopefully adoption at the June 6th meeting. So that is where we are in the progress of it, and it concludes my report this evening if there are any questions of the board.
I think just the fact that mental health was in the top 5 and mental health was in the top 3 for our kids, I don't think we need to be waiting for a strategic plan update to get moving on that.
Yes.
Obviously, we're seeing across the nation it's a mental health crisis, but I think just in that survey that we're seeing that, it's really, really telling. So I think it's an opportunity for us to get something going, and I know we had talked about having a mental health committee, and that was kind of derailed by COVID, but I think it should be a big priority right now.
So the 3 open-ended questions, you said that what we should start, stop, and continue, you said that was being compiled by?
So we have that full access to it, each individual. So picture 2,000 individuals sharing an open-ended response to what we should start doing, then what we should stop doing. So there's about 6,000 responses, and you just look for those analytical trends and their keywords that begin to arise. It might be technology. What are those keywords? So that is
that us doing that, or is that the consultant?
That is the consultant
Okay.
supporting that. Yes, that is definitely something that was one of those heavy lifts we
Yeah.
needed support on.
Okay.
Comments, questions?
No, very appreciative, good progress. Like comments on the steering committee, I would agree. Role as an integrator, and that's good. Keep on track.
End goal,
Thank you.
May.
The end goal is to bring forward to the board, and that would be the board's discretion. At that time, we have been working on the revisions to the mission statement, the values, and the vision. We are closing in on what we think is a final draft of those words. So that is at the board's discretion if you would like us to bring that back for the board to finalize prior to the overall draft being presented in May. We could do another workshop, or however the board would like to proceed with.
I think that, I would
That
like
would
to
make
see
sense.
that,
Yeah,
yeah.
we could do that, or we could also do a 2-on-2 in April. We have a few other larger topics that we're going to bring you after spring break, so we could incorporate some of this information into those 2-on-2 meetings as well.
And then
That would be
officially
perfect.
present and vote. You would want to vote officially.
Correct.
At some point.
Yeah,
And I think
After those.
Those are the
just
drivers.
the insight that you're giving based on the conversations in the steering committee and everything, I think that's kind of the information we want to hear when you're giving us information too. It's helpful for us to just know the background of what they were talking about. So.
There's several staff members who were, and I think Dr. Butler was in the room, I know Catherine was there. I can't remember if any other staff member was in the room during the steering committee. That steering committee, they were not shy. They were a fantastic group of just different backgrounds and different experiences within our communities. I could not be more proud of the students that spoke. I mean, they really spoke well for the kids in York County schools. The staff members in there did. The parents were wonderful. Business partners. It was a really, really good session. There's hope. It was really, really, I'll just tell you, it was 2 hours of them being 100% honest with us. And we kind of laughed because some of this is wordsmithing as you're going through these things. And, they just cut right to the chase and said, what does that mean? And I mean, they were really short and to the point, which we respect. We're glad that, sometimes you have to pull the teeth of the people in the room to get them to share feedback. Not the case. They were wonderful. They were wonderful.
I know I've heard from a couple people on this, a student on the steering committee and a parent, and they've just said they're grateful for the opportunity and they know that when your voice can be heard, you need to make sure you're speaking up, so I think it's great.
It was great. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Goff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all these presentations this evening. Our next regular meeting will be held at 7 p.m. on Monday, March 28th, upstairs here at York Hall. This special meeting is now adjourned. Have a great week.